Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to let you know that we talk about sensitive topics related to mental health challenges faced by attorneys. If you are an attorney who needs support, please know that help is available. There are resources specifically designed to assist legal professionals. We'll include some helpful resources in the description of the episode. In the meantime, you can reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by calling or texting 988. This confidential service is available 24/7. Now, let's get started with the episode. Bambiz presents Elder Law Growth, the podcast that helps elder law and estate planning attorneys attract clients without wasting time or money. I'm your host, Jim Blake. Let's dive in. Welcome to Elder Law Growth. Today's episode is very special because we've got the one and only Steve Riley with us. Steve's not just any guest. He is a trailblazer in the legal world, making the leap from high energy trial law to estate planning and elder law. And let me tell you, this guy knows how to turn a firm around. Now, Steve and I go way back to 2016, thanks to my wife Andrea's work with Elder Council. We both live in Florida, and we both screamed our lungs out at Halloween Horror Nights. But beyond our shared thrill for scares, Steve's deep dive into legal coaching with Atticus, with game-changing programs like Double Your Revenue, are what will make this episode a must listen to. Steve has published multiple books like The Busy Lawyer's Guide to the Laws of Practice Growth, which are the kind of legal cheat sheets you need, packed with wisdom on growing your practice without missing out on life's joys. So as we chat with Steve today, expect a mix of genius insights, laughs, and maybe even a few aha moments. It's not every day you get to hear from someone who's mastered the art of winning at work and enjoying life to its fullest. Steve, welcome to Elder Law Growth. I'm so happy to have you on as a guest.
Jim, thank you. It's a real privilege to be here with you. I always enjoy any time I get to spend with you, whether it's at Halloween Horror Nights, screaming our heads off, or talking about growing practices and helping our respective clients grow. So it's always a fascinating thing to talk about, and it's a real privilege. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being here. This has been a long time in the making. At Bambiz, we've sponsored plenty of your Atticus events. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So to really kick it off, a lot of our attorneys that are listening to this podcast, they're used to marketing. They want to grow their practices. One of the things to start off with, though, is like, okay, let's get them some confidence in selling. A lot of times, and I'll use an example that I see, they have these psychological barriers when they're actually selling their services. And so what would you kind of go on and how can they overcome being afraid to sell?
It's a great question. So it took me a while to wrap my brain around a couple things here. The first thing that I want you to consider, not so much you, Jim, but people who are listening to this, is that are you in the selling business or are you in the helping business? And most lawyers went into the practice to make a difference and help. Very few lawyers that I know actually went into law to say, I'm here to make a ton of money. And if they did, they're probably in the PI field, not the elder law and estate planning field. In the elder law field and the estate planning field, they're usually do-gooders with an anti-authoritarian complex. They want to help. You just, by God, don't tell them how to do it. So the first thing you have to shift in your mindset is that you're not really selling, you're helping. And if you're selling, then your process is about you. If you're helping, the process is about them. So the first thing I would encourage you to do as a lawyer is think about, am I selling or am I helping? Which really leads me to two things. The first one is most of us as attorneys get trained with what I call an academic mindset. And we're taught how to perform analytically and perform for grades. And a lot of lawyers don't realize once they came out of law school, they kept thinking like that. And they believe that what's really important is how smart I am, what my certifications look like, what my degrees are, who I clerked for 100 years ago when I was a law clerk. A lot of those things are academic measurements. So I usually try and point out to lawyers that if you're in an academic mindset and you're worried about how smart you are, you're not really paying attention to the shift that you made when you opened up your own practice or you went to private practice, which is one of service, one of helping people. You're there to help people. So I would say look out for the academic mindset. And the other thing I would do is just take that one step further. In my career, and I did the same thing, Jim, and this is why what you do is so critically important. When I started my practice, I went through the three common phases I see lawyers go through when they market. The first phase is called, wow, look how cool this is. Look all the cool things I can do as a lawyer. And they go, they're just so excited about it. And that's what I was when I was a young lawyer. Then the second phase is kind of a byproduct of the academic mindset, which is called, look how smart I am. And this is where the lawyers compete on bios. The third phase, and this is where you're really critical, is how can I help you? And you can see this on websites. You can see how the websites are designed. The websites got the typical firing squad photo of a lawyer against the bookshelves and their bio there and, all the certifications. They're usually on stage two. If you look at a website where the lawyers pivot it to where, how can I help you? Then they're really about the prospect. They're really about the client. And that's a major shift. And once you make that shift and you realize the whole purpose of your practice is to be of service to people, then everything starts to flip: your messaging, your communication. So this is why I think what you do in Bambiz and what your team's committed to is so critical, because you're part of that process, helping lawyers get away from the academic mindset and get in a position where they're truly trying to figure out, how can I help people? And as you know, as lawyers, we're not trained on marketing. We're not trained on advertising. We're not trained on sales, but we are trained on advocacy. When I talk to lawyers, I usually want them to think, and we have to remember, I am a lawyer, that you're advocating for a better outcome for your client. And usually you have to advocate with the obstacles in their head, like what they're worried about, what their concerns are. And you have to let go of the obstacles in your head, such as, are you the right fit? Are you good enough to do this? Do you have the right certifications? Did you go to the right school? Do you know the right people? All the wacky things, all the head trash that we carry as human beings. If you let that go and just focus on them, then you're in the right space. If you're sitting there trying to sort through all the objections they may have, then you're probably still thinking about you and not shift it over to thinking about them. So those are just a couple thoughts I have about this, Jim. It's one of the things I've thought about a lot and one of the things I wrestle with. First thing I think is to have confidence in selling is really get clear, what's your role there?
Yeah. I mean, overcoming imposter syndrome, which is kind of what you were discussing there. I mean, that's a big thing for anybody. And so, yeah, fighting that battle, realizing that you're probably always going to have imposter syndrome, and then being okay with it. I like what you said. And I was actually at the summit last year. I was talking to some people, which is the big event that Atticus puts on. And we don't say it because it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but you actually make your coaching clients, I believe, read Donald Miller's Building a Story brand, which is kind of like a methodology of like taking people into that step three.
Yes.
Which is, it is about them. It's about their clients, right? It's no one cares about where I went to school, really. No one cares about how awesome I am, but it's really about how I, at my law firm, I can be a trusted guide to help you get with where you are today with your problems to the ideal outcome for your particular situation in your family. And so, yeah, making that shift, I think, has been a very valuable thing for the firms that are willing to do so. Is like, let's overcome imposters and let's be okay putting myself out there, and let's be okay humbling myself a little bit so that I can take these people from where they are today to where they need to be, so that they do have the legacy that they want to leave to their families, or that they can live the last years of their life, comfortably without like feeling like they're going to lose everything. So I definitely resonate with what you were saying there and believe that is a big, important thing for these firms.
As a recovering trial lawyer, I've studied the use of stories, and there's tons of books out there on story structure, story selling. So at the end of the day, you're using some form of story tool to communicate. And there's tons and tons of resources out there on that. And I think Don Miller's book, Story Brand's a great one and a simple one. So it's a perfect reference.
And to build off of that, and like with the confidence, now say, hey, you know what, they're getting out there. One of the things that we see, we start to build out these marketing messages, is that they want to be perfect. And I think that that's kind of been a barrier for some of the firms that we've worked with and we've talked to, and even some fears of like even getting started. What would be some things on how can they get over themselves and how can they move past that and realize that like imperfection is what will actually bring them more people and make them more relatable?
It's a couple levels to this. So when I started my estate planning elder law practice, from transitioning from PI to estate planning elder law, I had really myself, one associate, and about 3 staff when I started it. And I quickly blossomed it. Took about a year to 2 years to go to 4 attorneys and 14 staff. What I realized, and I try and pass this on in our Dominate Your Market program, is that we became the dominant market player in our niche very, very quickly. It was because of two things. Number one, I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was just trying to be 20% better than my competitors. And what I realized is that my competitors were frozen in fear trying to be perfect. So while they're over there trying to be perfect, I'm over there daring to be ugly and daring to take steps and daring to take risks. And I was funny enough, you might be amused with this, Jim. So when I started doing referral-based marketing, which was one of the core elements of my practice, and I practiced in Tampa. I went to the Tampa Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. So it's an association. And I showed up for one of the meetings and as a lawyer, to wear my suit, the whole lawyer get up. I walked in and there were 150, 200 insurance agents and financial planners there. And they had, in all the years that they've been running the association, they never had a lawyer come to one of the meetings. And within about 1 to 2 years, I became friends with 30 or 40, maybe 50 of these people, and quickly became known as the go-to lawyer in the association for any type of estate planning or elder law work. Now, my fears were, did I look like I belonged? Would all these gals and guys be jumping on me to sell me insurance? Will I not like them? Will I look stupid? I don't understand their business. I had a lot of fears, but those fears kept every other lawyer out of the association for like 20 years. And even after being a part of that association for a decade, and when I went to sell my practice, I quit being involved with it. Even when I told my friends that were lawyers, like, you should join the association, they were like, no, that's not for me. That's not for me. So it was really funny that this one of the successes that I try and pass on to other lawyers is don't try and be perfect. Just try and be 20% better than your competitors. And sometimes 20% better means just showing up. It means just showing up for a meeting, saying hello, saying thank you, learning how to ask for business. So really basic. I mean, it's not too sophisticated. You don't need an LLM in this. You just need, just basic kindergarten manners, and you're in a really great position. Most of the time, for me, I just got in the way of the business there. I didn't really like to have to do much requesting because I was a lawyer, so people constantly brought me interesting questions or interesting cases, and they would come over, and since they were friends of mine, they'd say, "Hey, Steve, I got this case. I'm not sure what to do with it." And they would talk to me about it, and I would say, I can help you with that case if you want. Maybe we'll set up a meeting with the client. They're like, "Would you do that for me?" Yeah, I would absolutely do that for you to, sit with this person and, see if we can help solve this issue because it's a legal issue and a financial issue. So I would tell people first, don't worry about being perfect, just 20% better. And the second thing, and you said this well, it's not a confidence issue, it's a courage issue. Confidence is what you get after you've done something courageous. So I promise you, when I walked in that association meeting for the first time, I wasn't confident. I was sweaty. I was nervous. Did I wear the right tie? Did I wear the right, do I look goofy? Do I belong? What will I say? Where will I sit? I don't know anybody here. What will I do? I felt like the first day of high school. And so all this was going in through my head. And, 2 or 3 people that were like, "You're a new member here and you're a lawyer and you're first checking us out. Welcome to the party." And they were more than gracious. They were open to armed and just like, come on in. Their welcome was so warm and so gracious that by the end of the lunch, I was like, these people are terrific. All of my misperceptions about them were completely stupid and arrogant on my part. They're just in and I'm still friends with a lot of them. They're just great people. So the side of this is I walked in there terrified, and then I walked out confident. So you're going to do a lot of things where you're scared, and it's courage that you need. Confidence is a reward. So it's just something that I've learned over the years that confidence is the byproduct. You have to go for courage first, and courage doesn't feel good because it feels kind of crappy actually when you think about it, because it's what you need to go through terror, right? You're afraid.
No, for sure. I mean, I think the one thing is people have raised the bar in their mind higher than it actually is. The bar isn't that high, right? So just getting yourselves out there, having the courage to do it, that's all it's really going to take. And also too, like one thing I keep telling myself, and I don't know if you do this as well, this is kind of a mental thing. People are just people. No one's better than you, but we're all humans. We're all here trying to do the same thing at the end of the day. No one's better than anybody else. And so I think if you can kind of like get that into your mindset, and it's like, we're just out here all trying to be a little bit better every single day. You're a person, I'm a person, you're here because you have something that you need, and I'm here because I have something that I need as well, right? And we're all here just making it a little bit better every single day. So I love hearing that.
I think that's part of the humanity that a lot of lawyers lose in law school. So I think that's beaten out of lawyers. So what is common sense to you, I think for a lot of lawyers, we've been twisted into a particular achievement mindset and highly competitive. So I think we're coming out of law school, we've lost the authentic human touch. And we're trained to be skeptics, not only naturally skeptic, but it's a heightened skepticism. So while it looks like common sense, I think a lot of lawyers have to go through some emotional groundwork before they go, oh, wait a minute, I'm still a human being. I'm still here trying to help other human beings and authentically getting in touch with who they are and learning how to be that person that they were before they went to law school.
Like I'm getting intrigued just by you talking about that. I'm like, oh man, what would be like the thing that would get them out of that the fastest is what's coming to my mind. Like if they get out of law school or they're in this mindset, has there been something that you've seen like snap them out of that at a faster rate than time itself?
Usually two things. One is they have to develop enough pain that they want to make a change in their life. And lawyers have a high level of pain tolerance. So trying to get to a lawyer before they've suffered enough, but to make a change, it's very difficult to do. And so they usually don't pivot until they've suffered enough. And when they suffered enough, they hit the epiphany of, this isn't working for me and I need to find some help. And that's usually when our organization, our community is able to help somebody because they've raised their hand, like, my life kind of sucks. And it's usually not finances. That's how come we use great practice, great life in all of our communications, because usually the lawyers are really great at building a great practice. They usually suck at building a great life. And that's part of what the price or the sacrifice they made in law school, that they gave that up. And a lot of lawyers have what I call the used to life. They used to read books. They used to go to the movies. They used to exercise. They used to have fun on the weekends. And now they're working and they think that's the sacrifice they must make to continue to be the best of the best in their profession. So I think that's the first thing, is they have to be in a tremendous lot of pain. And two, they've got to have somebody care enough about them. And usually it's another lawyer. Most of our business comes from other lawyers that say, dude, what are you doing? You don't have to suffer like this. You don't have to do that. Come over here and let us help you. Like, you don't have to do that. And that's kind of, I think, the point where humility sets in, because you're trained to be, although lawyers are very insecure, they're trained to be independent thinkers, and they're trained to withstand a lot of pain. They're trained to fake it till you make it, but they don't really appreciate the emotional toll. The depression is 3 times higher for lawyers than it is for the national average. Burnout's reported at 54%, so more than 1 out of 2 lawyers is reporting depression. One of the things that's really tragic is the amount of suicide, how high the suicide rate is for young male lawyers, Jim, between the age of 35 and 50, who are, interestingly enough, the minority lawyers are actually at a higher risk of suicide in that age range. And the thing that puts pressure on them is marriage and kids. So they're actually married, they've got kids. Yeah, they're trying to become a partner in a firm, and they're probably at the highest risk of suicide. So it's a tough business. I think the awareness by the bar associations how difficult it is there, but a lot of lawyers don't want to reach out to the bar associations for help because they don't trust them, especially the solo and small firm lawyers. They just don't trust them. And so there are a lot of lawyers out there silently suffering and a lot of pain. So it's a big, you hit a hot button for me. It's a big topic, something that I care deeply about and worry about. I've had 3 suicides in my life of other lawyers. So it's a tragic, but I hate to use the term, not uncommon. It's kind of it happens, and it's because it's a high pressure business, and this is the core of what I'm about. This is the core of what our organization's about. This is the core of what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to get lawyers to realize you can have a great practice, but you have to have a great life first. And if you really want to grow and grow fast, having a life that you are passionate about, you're excited about, will push the growth of your practice quicker. But most lawyers just say, give me a great practice and I'll buy a great life later. This is one of the things I always respected about you and your wife, and your value systems keeps your your priorities are clear, like your priorities as a human being with your family, your wife, you are clear. And I've seen you make decisions where there might be more money on the other side, but you've made decisions based on family first, which I respect. Sometimes lawyers don't have the same strong compass, and it's not a values compass. They get sucked into the gravitational pull of the industry, the culture of law firms, and their views get distorted over time. So
it's true. And I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I run a marketing agency, right? We work with lawyers. I see this as well. And one of the things that, when we're setting up a marketing campaign that we actually have to coach, right? Like some of these different law firms, is growth for the sake of growth is pointless. And so a lot of the, you say, well, how many people do you want to come to your workshop? What are your revenue goals? How many consultations are you looking to have this month? And some, not everybody, most people are pretty rational, normal, but some people give out like wild numbers, just like they're making them up, and it's crazy. And you're like, if we even did that for you, how would you even manage that? Like, why? Like, why do you want that many? Like, do you really want to fill a room with over 100 people? Like, are you just skimming the top? Growth for just the sake of growing, like without a why behind it, is pointless in my opinion, right? Like, you need to have a why. You need to know what you're doing. Are you building this up so you can sell it? Are you building it up to live X lifestyle? Are you building it up because you want to have a lasting impact in the community that you're serving? And you want the ball field in your local community to have a little plaque out front of it with your name on it one day. I don't know what that is, but to everybody, that's going to be a little bit different. And I think once you can clarify that reason, everything else comes around a lot easier. So
I agree, totally agree.
Wow, that was a powerful conversation between Steve and Jim in this month's episode of the Elder Law Growth Podcast. In the next episode, Steve and Jim go a little more in depth on mastering phone etiquette and first impressions for your practice. Steve will go a little more in depth in the next episode on how these seemingly small things can really elevate your practice in terms of lead management. And he goes over how to train your office to handle these incoming leads effectively. It is going to be a great episode, so be sure to tune in. That's a wrap on another episode of the Elder Law Growth Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things marketing for elder law and estate planning law firms. Here you can find all of the tools and skills you need to market your own practice without wasting your time. If you like this podcast, please leave us a review wherever you're listening. And if you're ready to take the pressure off and let our team handle your marketing, visit Bambiz.net and book a free call with us today.